The storm had ended hours ago, but the sky still looked bruised and heavy. The wind carried dust and smoke over the silent valley, where alien homes stood broken and lifeless. Human engineer Eli Ward moved slowly through the ruins, his boots crunching over glass and metal shards. His scanner beeped softly, showing no sign of life. He should have gone back to his base, but something inside him didn't let him. He had seen storms before, he had seen war, but never silence like this. The alien village had been full once. Children laughing, markets glowing blue at night, mothers singing soft songs that floated through the wind. Now it was nothing but wreckage. Eli's orders were clear. Search for resources, no contact with survivors. The last thing Command wanted was another human interference story spreading through the colonies. But then, he heard it, a faint broken sound. Not metal, not wind. A cry. Eli froze, turning off his scanner. He listened. The sound came again, weak, trembling, and full of pain. He followed it, stepping through the rubble until he reached a half-collapsed shelter. The roof had caved in, and under the debris lay a figure, thin, shaking, covered in gray dust. It was an alien woman, her skin pale blue, marked with strange silver veins that glowed faintly in the dark. She held something in her arms, something small wrapped in cloth. Her voice broke as she whispered, "Please." "Someone, please." Eli knelt beside her. "Hey," he said quietly, "I'm here. Don't move." The woman looked up, her large violet eyes widening at the sight of a human. Fear flashed in them first, then exhaustion. She tried to speak but coughed instead, clutching the bundle closer. "Please, my child," she whispered. He can't feed. My milk has dried up." Eli stared at her, shocked by the words. The small bundle moved weakly. A tiny alien infant, skin translucent, chest rising shallowly, barely alive. Eli swallowed hard. His rations were limited. His orders forbade this. Helping her could mean losing his position, or worse. But he couldn't walk away. He took out his water flask and gently touched it to her lips. She drank, slow and shaking. Then he poured a few drops into the baby's mouth. The infant stirred, making a soft sound that made Eli's throat tighten. "What's your name?" he asked softly. "Lariah," she said, her voice like a whisper breaking through tears. "My mate is gone. The storm took him." "My child." She looked at the baby, then at Eli. "You are human. They say you do not help us." Eli looked away. "They say a lot of things," he replied. He searched his bag and found a pack of nutrient gel, designed for humans, but maybe it could work. He tore a small piece and offered it to her. "Try this slowly." Lariah hesitated. Her hands shook as she fed herself, then tried to give some to her child. The baby took it weakly, then stopped moving again. Eli's heart pounded. He checked his scanner. Oxygen was dropping in the shelter. The place could collapse at any moment. "We have to move," he said. "Now." "No," she cried weakly, clutching her child. "I can't walk." Eli looked around. The structure groaned above them. He had two choices, obey his mission or save them. He threw his scanner aside, lifted the alien mother into his arms, and ran. Dust and fire followed him as the roof caved in behind. He stumbled out into the open air, gasping, holding both lives close to his chest. Outside, the storm's afterglow lit the broken horizon. He carried them across the ruins toward his transport rover. The baby's tiny hand brushed his glove, cold but still moving. When he finally laid them inside the rover, Lariah looked up at him again. "Why?" she asked softly. "Why help me?" Eli didn't have an answer. He just stared at the fragile child and said, "Because I couldn't listen to that cry and do nothing." The rover started, engines humming to life. Behind him, the village lay in ashes. Ahead, the long desert stretched under the red sky. He didn't know what punishment awaited him for breaking orders, but in that moment none of it mattered. For the first time in years, Eli felt human again. And somewhere deep in her arms, the alien baby made a soft, hopeful sound like a promise that the universe hadn't gone completely dark. The rover rolled across the barren land, its wheels crunching over dry, red soil. Eli's hands gripped the controls tightly, his heart still racing from what he had done. The human colony laws were clear. No alien contact, no interference. Yet the alien widow and her baby now rested in the back seat, covered in his emergency blanket. He glanced at the rear monitor. The mother, Lariah, sat motionless, her eyes half closed from exhaustion. The baby lay on her lap, breathing weakly. Eli reached for his medkit and injected a small nutrient mist into the air. It smelled faintly sweet, something that might help the infant breathe easier. As the rover entered the canyon, Eli's communication unit flashed. "Engineer Ward," a voice barked through static. "You've gone off-grid. Report status immediately." Eli froze. He turned the volume down, pretending the signal had dropped. His throat felt dry. If Command discovered he had picked up alien survivors, his career would be over. Maybe even his freedom. He drove faster. Finally, he reached his hidden maintenance outpost, an old dome-shaped shelter used for off-duty repairs. It was far from scanners and patrols. He carried Lyraya inside, laying her gently on a thermal cot. The room was cold and dim, but safe. Lyraya blinked, disoriented. "Where am I?" "Safe," Eli said softly. "This is a maintenance station. You can rest." She stared at him in silence. Humans were known as cold, efficient, unfeeling, machines in flesh. Yet this one had carried her through the storm and given her warmth. "Why help me?" she asked again. Eli avoided her eyes. "Because you asked," he said simply. He turned away, setting up his portable heater. Then he opened a ration pack and stirred it into warm water. "This might help," he said, offering it. "It's human formula meant for infants during cryo-travel. Maybe your child can take it." Lyraya hesitated. Her trembling hands reached out. She dipped her finger into the cup, touched it to her child's lips, and waited. The baby swallowed. Once, twice, then started to breathe a little stronger. Tears filled Lyraya's eyes. "It works," she whispered. "By the stars, it works." Eli let out a slow breath. "Good, he'll be fine for now." Hours passed in silence. The storm outside faded to a soft hum. Lyraya slept beside her child while Eli checked his instruments. The data log showed rising energy readings. The outpost signal might be traceable soon. He knew he couldn't stay here long, but he couldn't leave them either. When Lyraya woke, Eli was repairing a damaged oxygen valve. She watched him quietly, noticing how tired his eyes looked. "You risk much," she said softly. "Yeah," he replied. "Humans aren't supposed to care." She tilted her head. "And yet you do." He didn't answer. Instead, he handed her a small glowing pendant he had found among the ruins earlier. "This yours?" Her eyes widened. "It was my mate's," she whispered, clutching it. "He died saving others. You remind me of him." The words hit Eli like a blade through his chest. He looked at her, then the baby, and for a moment the whole war between their species seemed far away. Then a sharp beep cut through the quiet. The motion sensor flashed red. Eli jumped to his feet, checking the monitor. A patrol drone was hovering near the canyon entrance, human-made, scanning for life signs. If it detected aliens, it would call reinforcements within minutes. "Hide," he whispered quickly. He grabbed a thermal sheet and covered Lyraya and the baby. "Don't move. Don't make a sound." The drone passed overhead, light sweeping across the outpost. Eli stood motionless beside his terminal, pretending to adjust settings. His heartbeat thundered in his ears. After a few tense seconds, the drone's light faded and it drifted away. Only then did he exhale. Lyraya slowly uncovered herself, eyes wide with fear. "You could have betrayed me," she said, trembling. "Why didn't you?" Eli gave a tired half-smile. "Because I've seen enough death. Saving one life won't end the world." The baby stirred again, cooing softly. Lyraya touched its cheek and whispered something in her language. A word Eli didn't understand, but it sounded like hope. Outside, thunder rolled across the canyon, echoing like a warning. Inside, Eli sat beside them, staring at the tiny alien child. He knew his life was no longer his own. By saving one widow and her baby, he had crossed a line no human could uncross. And somewhere deep inside, he felt the first spark of something that scared him more than any punishment, faith that humanity could still do good. The next sunrise came pale and weak, bleeding through the cracks of the metal dome. Eli hadn't slept. He sat beside the heater, watching the infant breathe. Each tiny sound from the child made him flinch, afraid it might be the last. The baby's chest rose and fell so softly that sometimes he wasn't sure it was still alive. Lyraya stirred awake, her face hollow with exhaustion. She had barely eaten in days. When she tried to stand, her legs trembled and she fell to her knees. Eli rushed to catch her. "Careful," he said. "You're not strong yet," her lips quivered. "I can't." I can't feed him. Even your food helps only for a while. She looked at her baby, tears filling her violet eyes. He's fading, human, like the stars of my world when they die. Eli clenched his jaw. He had seen death before, in battles, in medical wards, but this was different. This was slow and helpless. No, he said firmly. We're not giving up. He pulled out his engineering kit and opened the case. Your people use biomachines, right? Organic synthesizers? Lariah blinked. Yes, in our ships. To grow food, medicine, and life gels. Then maybe we can rebuild one, Eli said. She stared at him, confused. You would repair alien tech? I'll try, he said, already gathering tools. We'll build a nutrient generator for your baby. Something that mimics your milk. Her eyes widened in disbelief, but the human's determination was something she couldn't understand. Or stop. Hours turned into a blur of sparks and metal sounds. Eli worked tirelessly, patching wires, linking broken cores, and soldering glowing tubes he had scavenged from the ruins. Lariah helped where she could, her hands steady even when her body shook. At one point she stopped to look at him. You're kind. You destroy worlds. But you fix things too, she said softly. Why? Eli looked up, sweat rolling down his neck. Because we hate seeing something beautiful die, he answered. That silenced her. By nightfall, the device stood before them. A small, half-broken alien machine glowing with weak blue light. It hummed faintly but refused to activate. Eli frowned and hit the panel gently. Come on, he muttered. Just a little more. Lariah stepped forward, placing her hand on the core. The silver veins on her skin pulsed with faint light. Let me, she whispered. Her touch spread warmth into the machine, and slowly the hum deepened. The tubes flickered, then stabilized. A clear, glowing liquid began to form inside the small container. Eli's eyes widened. It's working, Lariah gasped softly. The baby opened his eyes, tiny and unfocused. She dipped a finger into the liquid and placed it against his lips. The child began to drink, weakly at first, then with more strength. Eli couldn't help smiling. You see? Hunger's got nothing on hope. But their relief didn't last long. A sudden crack echoed through the dome. The power lights flickered. Eli turned, his sensors spiked red. Something outside was moving. He killed the lights instantly and grabbed his plasma cutter. The sound came again, closer this time. Heavy footsteps in the sand. Lariah clutched her baby tightly, whispering a prayer in her language. Eli peeked through the small viewport. Shadows moved in the distance, 3 figures, tall and armed. Not humans, scavengers, he cursed under his breath. Raiders from the outer colonies, he said quietly. They steal tech and slaves. Lariah's voice trembled. If they find us? They won't, Eli said. Stay quiet. The raiders drew nearer, their torches flickering blue in the night. One of them stopped at the door, sniffing the air. Smells human, it hissed. And something else. Eli held his breath. His heart pounded like a drum. The raider tried the door, locked. It pounded on the metal once, twice, then silence. After a long minute, the footsteps faded. Eli waited, counting each heartbeat before lowering his cutter. They're gone, he whispered. Lariah exhaled shakily, still holding her baby. You saved us again. Eli shook his head. No, just bought us time. He looked at the nutrient machine, still flickering weakly. This thing isn't stable. I need to find a better power source. Lariah nodded, tears running down her face. You risk everything for someone not your kind. Why? He looked at her, at the fragile mother, at the glowing veins across her skin, at the baby who had finally stopped crying. Because maybe kindness isn't about kind, he said softly. It's about what's right. Outside, lightning flashed again across the red horizon, and thunder rumbled like the growl of an angry god. Inside the small dome, 3 lives clung to hope, unaware that both humans and aliens were now hunting for the same outlawed engineer, one who had chosen mercy over orders. And far above, in the orbiting human command ship, an alert blinked red. Unauthorized life signatures detected. Sector 9. The hunt for Eli Ward had begun. The night stretched long and tense. The wind had died, but an uneasy silence filled the canyon. Every sound, the creak of metal, the hiss of sand, felt louder than it should. Eli sat awake, one hand resting on his plasma cutter, his other on the old rifle he'd kept from his soldier days. The nutrient machine hummed softly beside him, its weak glow painting blue light over Lariah and her baby as they slept. He tried not to look at them too much, but his eyes kept drifting. Lyraya's breathing was shallow but steady, her silver-veined skin faintly luminous in the dark. The baby's tiny hands twitched in dreams. For a fleeting second, everything seemed peaceful, almost normal. Then came the sound. Footsteps. Heavy. Close. Eli's body went cold. He stood up silently and peered through the viewport. The raiders were back. This time, more of them. 5, maybe 6, moving carefully, their glowing eyes scanning the sand. Their weapons shimmered faintly, crude plasma blades stolen from black markets. Eli cursed under his breath. They must have followed the energy trace from the machine. He turned to Lyraya. "Wake up," he whispered. Her eyes snapped open instantly, her instincts sharper than exhaustion could dull. "They're here, aren't they?" "Yes, take your child. Hide behind the supply crates. Don't move no matter what you hear." Lyraya clutched her baby and hurried into the back of the outpost. Eli moved quickly, sealing the side door and dimming the lights. The hum of the machine faded. Only the sound of his breathing remained. Outside, one of the raiders barked something in a guttural alien tongue. A second voice replied, a leader's voice, deep and cruel. "We know you're in there, human. We saw your light." Eli stayed silent, finger on the rifle's trigger. "You hide a widow of our kind," the voice continued. "She's valuable. Her child's blood can be sold to the labs of Averon Prime. Open the door and maybe we'll let you live." Eli's jaw tightened. "Come and get me," he muttered under his breath. The raiders didn't wait for an answer. The first explosion rocked the dome as plasma fire slammed into the wall. Metal screamed and cracked. Eli ducked low, rolling behind a crate. Sparks rained down. The raiders broke through, snarling as they entered with glowing blades. The first one spotted him and swung. Eli parried with his rifle, the heat of the plasma searing past his arm. He fired a quick burst, one shot, two. The alien fell, writhing. The others spread out, shouting in their language. From the corner of the room, the nutrient machine sparked violently. Energy arced across the cables, lighting the outpost in flashing blue bursts. Lyraya held her breath in the shadows. She couldn't move. Her child whimpered softly, and she covered its mouth with trembling hands. Eli ducked behind a console and grabbed his plasma cutter, using it like a blade. When one raider lunged, Eli slashed through its armor, sending it crashing to the floor. Another fired a pulse at him. He dodged, but the blast grazed his shoulder, burning through his uniform. Pain flared white-hot. He gritted his teeth and kept moving. The leader entered last, a tall alien with bone markings across his face and cold red eyes. "A human risking his life for our kind," he sneered. "How pathetic." Eli raised his weapon. "Maybe, but you're still outnumbered." The leader laughed. "By one dying man?" Eli smirked faintly. "No, by her." Before the leader could react, Lyraya stepped out of the shadows, her eyes glowing silver. She raised her hand, and the veins along her arm blazed with light. The broken nutrient machine behind her pulsed in response, releasing a wave of bioenergy that slammed into the raiders like a shockwave. They screamed as the light burned across their armor. The leader stumbled, shielding his face. Eli charged, tackling him to the ground. The plasma rifle clattered away. They fought in the dirt, Eli's fists against alien strength. The leader struck him across the face, blood spraying. "You think one act of mercy makes you pure?" The raider growled. Eli spat blood and drove a wrench into the alien's chest plate. "No," he said through gritted teeth. "It makes me human." The raider gasped and fell limp. The others fled into the storm, dragging their wounded. Silence returned. Only the crackle of shorted wires filled the air. Eli collapsed to his knees, breathing hard. His shoulder burned, his knuckles were bloody, but he was alive. Lyraya rushed to him, eyes wide. You fought for us." He looked up at her with a weak grin. "Guess I'm bad at following rules." She touched his face gently, her fingers cool against his skin. "You risked everything. For strangers." "Not strangers," he said quietly, glancing at the baby who now slept peacefully in her arms. "Not anymore." Outside, the canyon wind began to rise again, carrying away the scent of blood and smoke. Inside the battered outpost, hope flickered like a fragile flame, but it was still burning. Neither of them knew that the fight had drawn more than just scavengers. Far above the desert, human patrol ships were already descending, drawn by the battle's heat signature. The next storm would not be made of sand, it would be made of men. The morning came red and raw, as if the sky itself was bleeding. The smell of burned metal lingered around the outpost, mixing with sand and dust. Eli sat by the doorway, one arm wrapped around his injured shoulder. Every breath hurt, but the pain didn't matter. Lariah and her baby were still alive. That was enough. Inside, the nutrient machine flickered weakly but continued to hum. The infant fed in quiet gulps while Lariah sang softly in her alien tongue, her voice trembling with both sorrow and peace. For a fleeting hour, the world outside didn't exist. Then Eli's wrist communicator lit up. Engineer Ward. A cold voice spoke, sharp and precise. "This is Commander Harlow of Central Patrol. Your unauthorized signal has been traced. Stay where you are." "We're inbound." Eli's heart sank. He looked out the small window. Above the canyon, streaks of light appeared, human patrol ships cutting through the sky like silver arrows. Lariah sensed the tension immediately. "You're kind," she whispered. "They're coming, aren't they?" He nodded slowly. "Yeah." Her grip tightened around her child. "They'll kill us," Eli hesitated. He wanted to lie, to promise safety. But he'd seen too much of what the military did to aliens. "They'll take you for testing," he admitted. "They'll call it containment." Her eyes filled with tears, shimmering in the dim light. "Then you must leave us." Eli shook his head. "Not a chance." He stood, pushing past the pain. "I got you into this mess. I'll get you out." The sound of engines grew louder. Dust swirled outside the dome. Eli ran to the console, typing frantically to disable the beacon. Too late. A thunderous crash followed, a patrol dropship landing only 100 meters away. He turned to Lariah. "Hide behind the machine. Don't move until I say." Lariah obeyed silently, clutching her child close. Her eyes never left him as he stepped toward the door, rifle in hand. The metal hatch burst open with a hiss and soldiers stormed in, armored, masked, rifles raised. The blue insignia of the Human Federation gleamed on their chests. At the front stood Commander Harlow, tall and rigid, his voice sharp like a blade. "Eli Ward," he barked. "You are under arrest for harboring alien life forms, violating interspecies quarantine law, and engaging hostile forces without authorization." Eli didn't move. "Those hostile forces were raiders. I protected civilians." "Aliens," Harlow corrected coldly. "Not civilians. You endangered your own kind for theirs." Eli clenched his fists. "They're not enemies. They're mothers, children, people." The soldiers exchanged glances. Harlow's jaw tightened. "You've gone native, Ward. Step aside." "We'll take them." Eli's body tensed. "You're not taking anyone." Harlow raised an eyebrow. "You're pointing a gun at your own commander." Eli didn't blink. "I'm pointing it at anyone who tries to hurt them." The air grew heavy. For a moment, no one moved. The hum of the machine filled the silence like a heartbeat. Then a small sound broke through. A baby's soft cry. Harlow's gaze shifted toward the sound. "So it's true," he muttered. "You really did keep one alive." Lariah stepped out of hiding, trembling but defiant. The soldiers lifted their weapons instantly, but Eli raised his hand. "Stop, she's not a threat." Harlow's face twisted in disbelief. "You think you can save the universe one alien at a time?" Eli stepped forward. "Maybe not. But I can save this one." The commander stared at him for a long moment. His hand twitched near his weapon, but something in Eli's eyes made him pause. The baby's crying grew louder, echoing through the silent dome. The soldiers hesitated, shifting uneasily. Finally, Harlow lowered his rifle slightly. "You're a fool, Ward," he said. "But I'm not executing a man who saved a child. We'll take you in for questioning. The aliens will go into medical custody." Eli's blood ran cold. "You mean the labs?" "Standard procedure," Harlow replied. Eli's finger twitched on the trigger. He wanted to fight, but he knew he couldn't win against 10 armed men. Slowly, painfully, he lowered his weapon. "Fine," he said quietly. "But I'm going with them." Harlow studied him, then nodded once. "You just volunteered for a death sentence." The soldiers stepped aside, letting Eli walk with Lariah and her baby toward the shuttle. Outside, the wind howled through the canyon, carrying dust and broken light. As they ascended into the sky, Lariah looked at him. "They will kill you for this," she whispered. Eli met her gaze and gave a tired smile. "Then I'll die for something worth dying for." The shuttle doors closed, sealing them inside. Far below, the nutrient machine in the abandoned outpost sparked one last time, and then its soft blue light went out. The hum of the shuttle faded into silence as it docked at the orbiting Federation command ship. The air inside was sterile, metallic, and cold, so different from the warmth of the desert below. Eli sat in restraints, wrists bound by magnetic cuffs. Across from him, Lariah cradled her baby under a blanket, trembling each time a soldier passed. They were marched down a corridor lined with white lights. Human officers stared as they passed, some with disgust, others with quiet curiosity. An alien widow holding a child on a human ship was something they'd never seen before. Commander Harlow walked ahead, his boots clicking sharply against the floor. "You'll both be held separately," he said without turning around. "Ward, you'll answer for your crimes before the tribunal at dawn." Eli's voice was calm but heavy. "What about the child?" Harlow didn't reply. Lariah clutched her baby tighter, her voice barely a whisper. "Please, he's sick. He needs the nutrients." "The medbay will handle it," Harlow said flatly. "If it lives, it lives." Eli's jaw tightened. He wanted to fight, to shout, to tear his restraints apart, but the soldiers surrounding them were ready to fire. He could only watch as Lariah and her baby were led away through a separate door, her eyes never leaving his until it closed. The silence that followed was louder than any explosion. Hours later, Eli sat in a cell of polished glass and steel. The lights flickered faintly. He could see the stars outside through a narrow slit, a reminder of how small he truly was. The door slid open with a soft hiss. A woman in a white coat stepped inside. Her eyes were cold, analytical. "I'm Dr. Wren," she said. "You're the one who fed the alien child." Eli nodded warily. "If you're here to test me, save your time." "I'm human," Reen smirked. "We know. But that baby, its body chemistry is rejecting all known alien formulas. You may have kept it alive for a while, but it's dying again." Eli's pulse quickened. "Then do something. You're the Federation's top doctors. Fix it." Her expression didn't change. "We can't. Its biology is too unstable. But we did find traces of human nutrients in its blood." She looked at him sharply. "You gave it human formula, didn't you?" "Yes," he said. "It worked for a while." Rain folded her arms. "That shouldn't be possible. Alien and human proteins are incompatible. Theoretically, the only way to stabilize it would be to bind the two at a genetic level." Eli blinked. "You mean create a hybrid formula?" "Precisely," she said coldly. "But doing so requires a living donor, a human one. The process will likely kill you." Eli didn't hesitate. "Then use me." Rain stared at him as if he'd lost his mind. "You'd die for a creature that isn't even your species?" He met her eyes. "It's a child. That's all that matters." She was silent for a long moment. Then she sighed. "Very well. I'll authorize it. But don't expect anyone to remember your name when this is over." In the med lab, Lariah sat beside her baby's capsule, tears streaking her face. The monitors beeped weakly. Each sound was slower than the last. When the door opened, she looked up and froze. Eli stood there, pale but steady, his arms covered in medical sensors. "They said it might work," he said quietly. "If I do this, he might live." Lariah shook her head, horrified. "No, you'll die." He smiled faintly. "I've been dying a long time, Lariah. This way it means something." Before she could stop him, the doctors began the process. Wires connected Eli's bloodstream to the hybrid generator. The machine hummed, fusing human plasma with alien nutrients. The air filled with a strange light, gold and blue mixing like sunrise. Eli felt his strength draining, his vision blurring. Every heartbeat was slower than the one before. But when he looked at the capsule, he saw the baby stir, the tiny chest rising and falling again. Lariah gasped, pressing her hand to the glass. "He's breathing." Eli smiled weakly. "Told you. Hunger's got nothing on hope." His legs gave out and the monitor screamed. The doctors rushed forward, shouting orders, but Eli's voice was fading fast. "Take care of him," he whispered. "Tell him, humans aren't all monsters." And then the hum stopped. The lights dimmed. Lariah screamed his name, but Eli didn't answer. Hours later, the command ship's records showed an impossible result. The hybrid child survived, its body perfectly stable, its energy levels off the charts. The story spread quietly through the fleet. A human had given his life for an alien infant. In her cell, Lariah held her baby close, tears falling silently. She whispered something in her language, a blessing for the dead and the brave. But deep in the med lab, a heartbeat monitor flickered once. Twice, Then again, Eli Ward was still alive. Barely. And destiny wasn't finished with him yet. The med lab was silent except for the slow, steady rhythm of a heartbeat monitor. The lights glowed softly, painting the room in hues of pale blue. Eli Ward lay motionless on the bed, his skin almost translucent, veins faintly shining with the same silvery tone he had once seen on Lyraya's arms. He wasn't supposed to be alive, but somehow, against all logic, his heart refused to stop. The door opened with a quiet hiss. Lyraya entered, her baby nestled in her arms. The infant cooed softly, bright-eyed and healthy, wrapped in a silver-blue cloth. For the first time since the storm, Lyraya's eyes carried no fear, only gratitude and grief. She stepped closer, whispering, "You saved him, Eli." "But who will save you?" The doctors had told her he would never wake up. The hybrid transfusion had fused human and alien biology in ways no one understood. He was caught somewhere between life and death, his body healing itself with strange energy the machine couldn't measure. Lyraya sat beside him, brushing a strand of hair from his forehead. "You gave everything," she murmured. "And still, you fight to breathe." Her voice trembled as she looked at her child. "He carries your light now. I'll make sure he remembers the human who gave him life." The baby reached out a tiny hand toward Eli's still form, and at that touch, Eli's monitor jumped. Once. Twice. Lyraya gasped. "Eli?" A faint sound escaped his lips, barely a whisper. "Still. Not dead yet." Tears spilled down her cheeks as she covered her mouth in disbelief. "By the stars." "You live." Eli's eyes fluttered open. The lights blurred into shape, and the first thing he saw was her. The alien widow smiling through tears, her baby resting against her chest. "You did it," he whispered weakly. "He's alive," Lyraya nodded, voice shaking. "Because of you. You gave him your strength." He tried to sit up, but pain rippled through his body. His muscles burned, his veins glowed faintly under his skin. "Guess I'm not fully human anymore," he said with a faint smile. She touched his hand gently. "You're more human than anyone I've ever known." News of what happened spread faster than anyone could contain it. Across the Federation and the alien colonies, whispers grew into stories, and stories into legends. Some called him the Mad Engineer. Others called him the Bridge Between Worlds. Soldiers who once feared aliens now looked at them differently. Scientists argued about how a human sacrifice had created a living hybrid that defied science. Commander Harlow stood before the tribunal, facing questions from his superiors. "You allowed this experiment?" one admiral demanded. Harlow's gaze was cold, but his voice was firm. "I didn't allow it."
"I witnessed it."
"And I saw something no machine could ever make sense of, mercy." The tribunal fell silent. Even hardened officers couldn't argue with the proof. The hybrid infant, healthy and strong, sleeping peacefully under the watch of both human and alien doctors. For the first time in history, the Federation suspended the no-contact law. A new council was formed, humans and aliens sitting side by side. The first symbol of peace was not a weapon or a treaty, but a child who carried both worlds in his veins. And the name given to that child was Elias, after the man who saved him. Weeks later, Eli stood on the deck of the observation bay, leaning against the railing. His body still ached, but he was alive, and something inside him felt different. The stars looked closer now, brighter somehow. Lyraya approached quietly, the child in her arms. "The council has approved relocation," she said softly. "They're letting me return home with him." Eli smiled faintly. "Good, he belongs with his people." She hesitated. "He belongs to both." Their eyes met. For a long moment, no words passed, only the quiet understanding of two souls who had crossed every line to save something pure. She stepped closer, holding out the baby. He should know the man who gave him life. Eli touched the infant's tiny hand. The baby grasped his finger tightly, eyes wide and curious. In that small gesture, Eli felt something break open in his chest, a warmth deeper than blood, deeper than fear. "Take care of him," Eli said softly. Lyraya smiled, tears glistening in her eyes. "I will, and they will sing of you, Eli Ward, the human who taught us what hope means." She turned to leave, her cloak shimmering in the starlight. The child looked back once, smiling faintly, before the door closed behind them. Eli stood alone, watching the stars through the glass. The galaxy was vast, cruel, and beautiful, and maybe, just maybe, it was beginning to heal. He whispered to the stars, "Maybe humanity isn't just about being human. Maybe it's about being kind." Far below, on the surface of the newly reborn colony, a monument already stood, a small statue of a man holding a child, carved from silver stone. The inscription read, "He bridged the stars not with power but with compassion, and through him 2 worlds learned to hope again." The legend of the alien widow and the human would echo through generations, a story whispered across worlds. A story of mercy, courage, and love that refused to die. And somewhere beyond the galaxies, under the same endless light, the human heart still beat, strong, stubborn, and eternal.